Hello everyone and welcome back to the World Rapid Championship. After his victory in round 3 over Anton Korbov, Alireza now faces Sergey Karjakin. So it's really a beautiful game and a really educational one, so I do hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it because it's just the whole battle, the whole game is basically a struggle over the d5 square, which usually happens in a Sicilian. But like many of you, I'm also very interested to see if Alireza can also do something against an elite player like Sergey Karjakin. So let's dive straight into it. Karjakin opens with e4 and we have c5. And last game we've seen how Alireza takes down the Najdorf defense. Now we get to see how Alireza plays the Najdorf defense. So d6, we have d4, captures, knight to f6, knight to c3, and of course a6. The Najdorf defense is on the board, and Karjakin goes for bishop to d3. We have e5, pushing the knight back, knight to e2, remaneuvering the knight over to g3, bishop to e7, and here Karjakin just castles. We have castles by Firouzja and knight to g3 now. With control of the f5 square, and here bishop to e6 is the most played move, but rook to e8 is what Alireza chooses. It has been played once so far, but it's still not a new move. So here we have bishop to c4. Knight to d5 is a known move in this position, but bishop to c4, which Karjakin plays, is a new move in the position. So it is already as a move 10 that we have a completely new game, and it's again a move directed towards controlling the d5 square. So bishop to e6, Alireza counters the bishop, and now knight to d5, just getting the knight to a nice central outpost. We have knight b to d7, preparing knight b6 to kick away the bishop. We have bishop to e3, and now rook to c8, also kicking away the bishop, just bishop back to b3, and bishop to f8. Now the bishop will be very useful guarding the king side, but also the rook is now controlling the e file, so at some point if you will be able to push d5, the e5 will have sufficient protection. So c3. If knight to c5 comes, now you can just push back the bishop, so you don't have to give up the bishop pair. We have queen to a5, and now comes knight captures on f6. As the knight on d5 was under heavy fire. We have knight captures on f6, and now bishop to g5. This is how Karjakin fights for the d5 square, now again attacking one of the defenders of the d5 square. Now knight to d7. Alireza prepares knight to c5 to kick away the bishop, or to just capture it, as it is one of the defenders of the d5 square. And here best for Karjakin is bishop to e3, but the problem with bishop to e3 is that it allows Alireza to repeat knight f6, and then we could actually see a repetition here, just a nice draw in move 16, with a repetition of moves, because everyone wants to control d5. But Karjakin is not interested in that. He goes queen to e2, and now we have knight to c5, attacking the bishop. Bishop captures on e6, we have knight captures on e6, now the bishop here is under attack, and the bishop moves, bishop back to e3. And now that finally d5 is a possibility, Alireza pushes it, and here we have it, d5. So if you're playing black here and you've executed d5 against someone like Sergey Karjakin, you feel really awesome about yourself. We have e captures on d5, queen captures on d5, and rook fd1. Karjakin puts a rook on the only open file on the board. Queen back to c6, and now queen to g4. Preparing to remaneuver the queen over to the queen side. There are no attacking chances here, since the bishop and knight really do a fine job guarding the black king. We have g6, and now comes f3. We have bishop to c5. Firouzja offers a trade of light square bishops. Bishop captures, Karjakin obliges, queen captures, and king to h1. And now rook c to d8. Firouzja says, I'm very, very happy with my position. We can just trade all the rooks off the board, and then even though you have a 3-2 advantage on the queen side, it's really not a problem once b5 comes. So here we have queen to e4, putting pressure on b7. Firouzja defends it. We have b5, and queen back to c2 now, just guarding the rook, and also if perhaps b4 comes, you might be able to advance the pawn with c4 and create a passed pawn. But with f5 by Firouzja, and now queen to b3, putting the pressure on the knight, so now rook captures is a threat, knight cannot capture, and if rook captures, then, well, just queen captures knight. So we hit king to f7, defending the knight on e6, and now comes a4 by Karjakin. Queen to c4, offering a queen trade and attacking the queen. So now queen captures on c4. You could also move the queen back, but Karjakin is, confident that he can hold this. We have pawn captures on c4, and now, like I said, Karjakin has a 3-2 advantage on the queen side, but the c4 pawn takes care of both of these pawns, so it's like you're not up a pawn on the queen side. With knight to f1, hoping to get knight e3 in to go after the c4 pawn, but now rook to d3. And now, if you capture, then black just gets a nice passed pawn on d3, and once e4 is played, it's just game over. So here we have, and also you cannot go knight to d2 because rook to d8 just wins the game. You lose material here. So rook to e1, putting pressure on the pawn here, but now knight c5. The pawn is nicely protected. King g1, preparing to bring the king into the game, but f4, taking away all the squares from the knight here. The knight is now not entering the game. We have rook e2, getting the rook to the second rank to help out with the defense, but now e4. We have pawn captures, rook captures, we have captures, and now rook to e1, attacking the knight, but now knight to c5. And this is a problem. If you activate the rook, you can no longer control your a4 pawn, so now if you go back, it's just a rook on a1 for the rest of the game, guarding that a4 pawn, and black has all the time in the world to improve his position. Well, white can't really do anything. So he decided to play a5 to keep his rook active, but now rook to d5. Now, after the knight moves, all of these pawns will be under attack. And here, since there are no good squares for the knight, Karjakin makes one. So now the h2 is a square available for the knight, but king f6. We have knight h2. King f5, taking away the g4 square from white's knight. We have knight to f3, and now just knight to d3, attacking the rook, attacking the b2 pawn, attacking the a5 pawn. We have rook to e7, going after the h7 pawn, but now Alireza says, okay, 2 pawns are better than 1. So rook captures on a5, rook captures on h7, and knight captures on b2. So here it's Alireza who is now up a pawn. Really, really just impressive stuff. This is, this is the good stuff that happens if you manage to, pull off d5 in a Sicilian and then just not be worse. So rook to f7 check. We have king e4, and Alireza is extremely low on time here, but like we already mentioned, for Alireza, that's really not a problem. We have king h2, and now knight to d1. Going after the c3 pawn, but also preparing some very nasty threats towards the white king. We have rook d7, now hoping for, if knight captures, rook d4 check, pushes the king back, captures on c4, and the game continues. But Alireza prefers knight to e3. He wants to get rook here. You can just threaten the g2 pawn, for example. So rook to d6, hoping to win back at least one more pawn before he starts defending, but you should really go rook d4 check, push the king back, and try and take it from there. However, after knight to e3, rook to d6 is played by Karjakin, and now Alireza goes for it. Knight g4 check, we have king h3, knight f2 check, king h2, and now rook a1, already threatening mate. We've reached the position from the thumbnail, so now knight g1, you have to defend against mate. We have knight back to g4 with check, king h1, and now knight to e5. And you can look, observe this position and see how beautiful it is. The knight guards the c4 pawn, the knight guards the g6 pawn, the king guards the f4 pawn. White doesn't have a useful move. So you can't move the knight, you can waste moves with the king, and if you do nothing, the a pawn will just start marching down the board. So here Karjakin tried king h2, but now rook a2. Threatening f3, since the g pawn is pinned, king back to h1, but now just a5. And here Karjakin played knight to f3, but it doesn't help him. He activated the knight, but only briefly. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the best continuation for black while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations. We already mentioned the line, only now it's even better because the rook lands on a1 with check. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's rook to a1 check. So congratulations on finding it. And it was in this position on move 54 that Sergey Karjakin resigned the game. He resigned as there is nothing more to be done here. If king h2, then you just mate the white king, knight g4 check, king h3, knight f2 check, king here, and now we already have a rook on a1, so rook h1 is mate. And if you don't, if you try and blocking with knight g1, then you just start, continue advancing your passed pawn. King h2, it's not a problem, just a3. You don't have a good move, you put a rook behind the passed pawn, just a2. You waste a move because you don't have any moves. You go knight g4 check, king h1, and now king e3, threatening king f2 with king captures on g1 mate. So here, again, white has no moves. You can try and prolong the game, rook e8 check, king f2, rook here, check, king g3, but now it's over. Any move you play, rook captures, knight is coming, and then you just advance the pawn all the way to win the game. Like, let's say, rook b2, it doesn't really matter, captures, and you don't even need a queen, you can bring a rook in the game, blocks, and now rook captures on b1 will be mate. Just thought you might enjoy seeing how to win this endgame. The point is, white doesn't have a move, a pawn is just winning. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I mean, I definitely have. I really enjoy games where, black really outperforms white in the Najdorf and is able to push d5. It's just beautiful stuff. And against someone, an elite player like Sergey Karjakin, that is quite an accomplishment. So, just, taking down Anton Korbov in round 3, taking down Karjakin in round 4, and in round 5, Alireza faces young Krzysztof Duda, who is also doing exceptionally well. And I think that it will be the game to cover next, so we'll see how it goes. So yeah. Once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Doug McNabb, Edward Baker, Maxim Pisanensky, 1998, and Torrance Fike for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the FIDE World Rapid Championship. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.